Let's go, Ryder Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. You got me as always. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And I've never looked better.
That
And
is
confirm.
true.
Yep.
Yep.
Did you keep that
Yeah, I
up
noticed-
all episode?
Oh, yep. You're right. You never did look better. We are your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. That is, if you're watching, Greg holding up the sign. That is the election sign, the yard sign we want to put in front of your house. Roland Milligan for most outstanding player. You know the campaign. It's been on social media. It's been on the show. We got the yard signs. We'll talk more about those in a little bit. You can give us a follow on X at PifflesPod. You can give me a follow at RealAlexD.
You can find me at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Check us out on Facebook as well. Like that page. And it's very key that you do those things, because if you don't, you have no chance of winning this guy this week, signed by Darian Durant and Roy Shivers. So if you want in on this giveaway football, make sure you're following on the socials, because that's the only way you can get in. Of course, Piffles Podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcasts, watching on YouTube, watching on Sass Telemax TV on demand. We appreciate it. This was the most convincing win of the season for the Riders, and everything is coming up Millhouse right now for the green and white. Let's get to the opening kickoff. So I think we were all in agreement last week. It was going to be a close game against BC. And based off what we've seen through, 16 previous games from this team this season, I think we had a pretty good reason to believe that. Well, I couldn't be happier to be wrong about that. The Riders absolutely dominated, put forth their best effort of the entire season, beating the Lions 39-8, moving the record to 9-7-1, which clinches that home playoff game. And before we even get into the scenario about getting possible first place, your immediate take, gentlemen, from both of you on that game and how the Riders played.
Well, I got to admit, my FOMO was through the roof. I was in Lethbridge. I was actually at the Lethbridge Hurricanes versus Brennan Weeking's game, and I keep on refreshing my phone. I'm like, no way. What? Like, legit, like, just put their foot on the throats of the Lions. Like, I couldn't wait to see the highlights, because I couldn't believe that they were that dominant.
You said this is the most convincing win for the Riders. I'd argue that it might have been the most convincing win by any team in the CFL this year. There was never a spot in that game that I was even remotely concerned that we were going to lose. Even after they scored their one and only touchdown, it just felt like we had everything under control. The guys came to play. The bounces were going our way for once. And Fairholm said in our losing streak, the one thing that was missing was those bounces not going our way. This is what happens when they do.
Well, it started right off the bat, too, with A.J. Allen and his pick six. He was getting the spot start for Adam O'Clair, who was a game-time decision, ended up sitting out that game. Allen gets a pick six to start it. The ball was batted up, bobbled a couple times, knocked around by, kept alive by your most outstanding player, Roland Milligan. And then Allen just hustled to the ball, got it, and took it to the house. And from there on, like, it was all Riders all the time. And outside of the one BC touchdown drive, like, this game was not close in any sense of the imagination. Like, domination up front, domination in the backfield, absolutely everything. And these guys are getting hot at the right time. We saw Winnipeg go in on an 8-game heater before they lost to Toronto last week. But the Riders are getting healthy and they're playing their best football right now, which is exactly what you want with one game left before the playoffs. So they can still get first place with a win over with a Montreal win over Winnipeg on the final day of the regular season. And then we'd have to beat Calgary, which I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do, but it seems like the easy thing to do right now. But we'll talk about that. That's the next week topic. That's next week. This game here. Let's go to Trevor Harris. 25 of 30, another super efficient game. If he was healthy all year, would he be the most outstanding player nominee for the Riders? Because he's been excellent since coming back from injury.
Well, considering he has better stats right now than Cody Fajardo, and everybody's talking about him as a potential nominee, absolutely. He's got more yards than Fajardo does, despite missing
six games.
You know, he's been putting up the numbers. He's been the most consistent quarterback since he came back from injury, and he's getting better week by week, which is exactly what you want as you get, into the late season run and into the playoffs. But absolutely, he'd be in the running.
Well, and yes, when he first came back, he had those, the wrestlers call it ring rust. He had those throws that he knew he shouldn't have made, tried to force them anyway. Then when they got in that losing streak, he was forcing throws to try to get out of the winning streak. Like, you're right, this team is playing its best football. It actually kind of reminds me of last year's Alouettes. To end the season last year, they caught the hot streak at the end, and they were a force to reckon with. And here's hoping the Riders can keep it up.
Perfect. That means we're not going to lose until like Game 7 next year. Love it. I would be perfectly okay with that. The timing from Harris on all these throws, with Jarrett Stearns, Keen Schaefer-Baker, Sam Emelis, the timing was just excellent. The play calling, I thought, was fantastic in this game. Other than the weird AJ Ouellette pass, which I believe was tipped. It sure looked like it was tipped.
I hope that was tipped.
AJ Ouellette should let him run the football. Don't let him throw the football ever. Had a receiver wide open.
I wasn't there, so just watching the highlights, I actually got a good chuckle out of it, because that means this team was feeling it. They're like, we can do anything. We are world beaters. We're just going to do this. It's something they've obviously practiced and thought they could run. And honestly, if it wasn't for that lame duck, it was going to work. The receiver was open. Like, it was fine.
Well, I've seen better passes out of most of the pass to win guys that they have running across the field at Mosaic Stadium every game. And some of those don't hit more than 2 or 3 out of 7. That was one of the worst throws I've ever seen. I hope it was tipped.
I can't get mad at that play, though, because I've been talking about let's be creative with the run game. They finally got creative and it was a toss for one, which they very rarely do. So that already throws the defense off. And then to have them throw a pass, like, the creativity was off the charts. So kudos to Mark Mueller for breaking that out. Just the execution wasn't there. But anyway, the timing, just everything about this game was just, the Riders nailed it. And you could tell that in the second half, they were just kind of trying to kill the clock, get out of there with no injuries, which it looked like they sure did. But Sam Ellis, another big game, 94 yards, almost 100, jumped over 1,000 yards for the season, back-to-back years. So I've been talking about how Keyshawn Johnson should be the alpha. Well, I guess it's Sam Emelis is the guy right now. He's playing the best out of the receivers over the last few weeks. So if he can keep that going, I mean, Jarrett Stearns was doing well this game as well too. So there's somebody different every single game that can step up. And if you're an opposing defense, like, those are 5 very, very good receivers you got to try and stop, and you can't stop them all.
I think we mentioned this in preseason. The one thing that the Riders have, while we may not have that true number 1 receiver, we have, and as a Packers fan, I'm very familiar with this right now. We don't have a number 1. We have 5 number 2s, and it's dependent on who's performing that day, who's the guy that day in the game plan, as opposed to who's the guy they have to feed the ball. Because on any given day, Keyshawn Johnson's been playing big. Dell Duncan Busby's been the man. Samuel Emilus has turned it on over the last 4 or 5 weeks and kind of been the guy that we expected out of him. But it seems like every week it's somebody new, and that's a problem for defenses, because who the heck do you cover in this core when there's 5 guys that are making plays game after game?
And you didn't even mention KSB, like, and Dante Myers when he comes back from injury. Like, this receiving, we've talked about it all year. This receiving core is deep, and at some point there's going to be decisions made on who's going to be playing and who can't be, because like we've got guys coming back from injury. Yeah, Bane's out for the season, so unfortunately he's not going to be back. But there's still 6-7 receivers on this team that other defenses have to worry about.
And running the ball, we talked about AJ Ouellette running for 84 yards, but how about that offensive line? Both pass protection and run blocking, they were absolutely phenomenal. Zach Fry getting in at left guard with Noah Zerb being pushed back to the 6th man. And the more I think about it, if Peter Godber is good to go for that last game and into the playoffs, I don't know right now, because ever since the Riders switched to 3 Americans on the offensive line, they've been winning. And do you want to mess with that going into the playoffs? Like, I know obviously you want to try and have your best players and the vets, available for the playoff run, but with the way that they're playing, it's kind of hard to argue against it.
It would help you for your ratio, but where do you pull a guy out, I guess, at that point? So drop a Canadian receiver spot if Myers is healthy, maybe.
Well, do you even bring on a Dante Myers, or do you take the American offensive lineman out and put on Reichwell Armstead, so you have Armstead and Ouellette on?
No.
So the next, going
having
to the playoff,
having that third Canadian on the line has a lot of flexibility, but right now they've got a ton of momentum and charisma, and I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's a good problem to have.
I have full trust that Edwin Harrison will put the right group of 5 out there. Whatever he wants to do, I've decided I'm fully in favor of. Just like we said in the preseason with anything Corey Mace wanted to do on this defense, Harrison can tell me he's putting you out at center. I'd be like, yep, cool. That sounds like it'll work. I trust it.
I'm going to start eating some Cheetos. And that
No
defense. Yeah. Well, maybe some meatballs. That'd be good. There's Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people have meatballs for Thanksgiving, which is weird to me. Yes. I was actually talking to Ian Hamilton, former writer for the Leader Post for many, many years. I was talking to him and his family. They were doing, I think it was vegan meatballs for his sister-in-law or something like that. But anyway, I know a lot of people that actually do like meatballs as like the main for Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that. Yeah, it's a thing. I promise.
I'm not going to yuck somebody else's yum. That sounds fantastic.
And come on, meatballs are awesome. We all love them. But this defense, in this game, I want to give a special shout out to Baldonado and then Benoit Marion on the D line. Baldonado was everywhere that game. And it wasn't flashy stats that they were putting up. They were just constantly making solid plays, making solid reads. Nathan Rourke could get nothing going. So that defense just they're peaking. They're peaking right now.
Well, you want to put a perfect example of a stat that won't show up in any stat book, but was clear as day for Baldonado. That pick right before the end of the first half. That pick doesn't happen if Baldonado doesn't absolutely rock Nathan Rourke. He's been a delightful surprise on that defensive line. He went from the all-name team to potentially my, that all CFL one day down the road. He's been money.
Well, and it's not the first time that he's forced an interception. I think it was on a Jameer Thurman interception that he got the rush on the quarterback, forcing the throw, and Thurman picked it off. So, and then that pick by Avery, obviously at the end of the first half, that was such a huge, not a momentum changer, but that just solidified to me that, yep, they got this one.
You assume with 15 seconds left, we're just going into the half up. What was it, 23-8, and I'd be okay with that. But to go up 3 scores, that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, and you do that especially when the other team's also thinking, okay, we'll go into the half, we'll get our minds right, we're fine, and then they do that. That's just an extra level that sinks them even further.
Yeah, Nathan Rourke was having a pretty awful game before that, and he was just terrible the entire game. One thing I noticed, though, is that they did not go after Roland Milligan Jr. They stayed away from him as much as possible. And if that doesn't tell you that Milligan's your MOP right there, we have some other stuff that backs it up too. But like, you can't be afraid of a defensive back in the CFL like that. And anytime you can get a shutdown, he's not even a corner, he's a halfback. When you can get a shutdown halfback, that's absolutely crazy to me. So they didn't even go near Milligan, and he was still around the ball, just flying out everywhere on the field, getting to the ball and making tackles. So, but once you guys take on what we saw from the BC Lions offense with Nathan Rourke obviously being bad, I was surprised they didn't put in Vernon Adams Jr. probably to start the third quarter, at least the second drive of the third quarter. What do you guys take of what BC did with their quarterbacks there?
I think they put themselves into a real rough situation here, because if they put in Vernon Adams and he absolutely lights it up against the Riders, what do they do next week? They have made it clear that Nathan Rourke is their guy.
Actually,
they're
no,
not
they
shying away
haven't.
from that.
Until
Well,
now.
Steve,
for this
till now,
for this
No,
week, they're playing Adams. I understand that, but this is a mean
yeah.
nothing game. This is a keep Rourke healthy, if anything else. But again, this is such a question mark from them. Why put in Adams there and not at any point in that second half? You know, you went to what's his name, Bryce.
Yeah.
Bryce.
I don't know if we saw him on the stat sheet. He didn't really. Well, he did okay in a very prevent defense to close that one out. But they have managed to bungle what was once a very promising season in BC. And Blake from BC was down for this when he said that trade may have killed the locker room. They're saying all the right things publicly, but it's hard to deny that you've seen a complete shift on that team since Nathan Rourke came around.
Well, and the weird thing is, first we'll go with VA just kind of volunteered out of the blue. Was it yesterday that there's no quarterback problems? Like, he just put that out there. It's like, don't worry, there's no quarterback problems, nothing to see here. And I'm like, okay, obviously this is a part of a thread. Like, he was talking about the team will fight back. I'm like, no, he just put it out there that, don't worry, everyone, there's nothing to see here. It's like, okay, so there's something to see here. You're just trying to get ahead of it. And then today they announced that he's going to start this last game, and supposedly if he plays well, he's probably going to start the playoff game. I'm like, okay. But the fact remains is they don't know what they're doing with their quarterback situation right now. Whether Rourke wasn't ready and they think he's too soft if VA does well, that they're going to ruin him, or they got too much money into him, I don't know. But yeah, ever since that signing happened, they've been on an obvious downswing. Like, they were the heavy favorites coming out of the West early in the season. And let's face it, they were lucky to make the playoffs here because they had enough wins from the beginning. So
Well, and you see the video posted by the Lions or by the CFL that Vernon Adams was the one hyping up the team pregame. Usually that's not a backup quarterback that's doing that, other than like Jameis Winston, which that seems to be his thing in the NFL. That's usually your starting quarterback that's trying to get the guys fired up. And You just add in with like Vernon obviously saying all the right things in the media. That's the person that he is. He might feel slighted about this whole quarterback situation with Rourke coming in and basically taking his job, but he's never going to say that. He's never going to show it. He is the ultimate team guy in that aspect. And I truly believe that about him. But something, it's a mess over there. That locker room, something's up in there, and it starts with that quarterback room. And Rick Campbell has absolutely screwed it up, honestly. Which good for us, because we were able to jump them in the standings, get that home playoff game, and may or may not play them in the playoffs. Who knows? But they're just a mess right now. But jumping back to the Riders, I like that Rob Vanstone put this one out for me. So thanks for doing the homework for me, Rob. Penalties. There was barely anything against the Riders in this one. Very, very disciplined game that they played. 2 penalties for 10 yards. It was their lowest total number of penalties since 2010, and the lowest amount of yards, 10 yards, since the 2013 West semifinal. So it's been a long, long time since this team has played that disciplined. And when you're doing that going into the playoffs, you're going to be a very tough out.
Okay, but who's going to get fined this week? We have to keep that streak alive.
Probably Durant.
The entire Riders defense for constantly punching BC in the mouth.
Durant for throwing balls in the crowd or something and not getting them back. So he's got to pay for those, maybe. I don't know.
But speaking of Durant, though, your point about VA firing up the team, at first I didn't think anything of it. Then I saw that awesome video they put out of Durant, and a lot of it was a lot of censored of him in that huddle getting the team fired up. And I'm like, that's what a leader does. Why is Rourke not in doing that? And
that's kind of what Eddie Steele said as well too. Saw him post about it and say that shouldn't be VA doing it.
Don't get me wrong, VA could be doing it, but Rourke was nowhere to be seen in that shot, which seemed really, really weird.
The Lions did do one thing right last Saturday, though. They had a watch party in Coquitlam, and I love that they did this. I wish all teams would do this. Rough Riders, wink, wink. First 60 people that went to the watch party at whatever bar they had it at, they got either a free hat, football, or autograph card. So first 60 people to get in there got something, some sort of swag, an autograph. Like it's little things like that. Like the cards cost nothing, and an autograph from the team costs absolutely nothing. A couple hats and some mini footballs, regular size footballs. I don't know what they were, but to do that costs very minimal for the team to throw 20 of those things around. And if you can get people in there, it just shows that sense of community. And I'd love to see more teams get on that. So, I mean, obviously Amar Doman has the pocketbook to be able to make that work, but hopefully it was a success. I didn't see any pictures or videos from it, but that's something that I think all teams can kind of learn from as well too. So, just get people to pay attention to you and market. And BC's doing that. So maybe we'll see something like that in the future.
Well, as much as bad a job as Campbell's doing with his quarterbacks, Doman is doing well with his business. He's getting the team in front of fans and vice versa. He's finding new ways to make the Lions relevant in a very busy Vancouver market. And so, yes, a lot of teams could learn from what he's doing.
All right. Now to finish off that game, Steve, I know you had a blast with this. The stats are right. The little game that they play every single game at the stadium. The stats are right or very wrong in this case. Can they vet some people first? At least I don't even care if you know about stats. It's not about that. Do you know how to play the prices right? Do you know how to do that? Yes, you can play. it didn't, especially the last contestant.
Yeah, I
bless him,
saw that.
but-
I'm like, wait a second. Did that
Oh.
last person go $1
quite,
below the
quite
other one?
literally the worst possible answer you could have in that, unless you know the answer is $14.99. Even then, 1,001.
$1,
obviously-
Bob.
It was
That just kept getting worse from start to finish. Although respect to the first woman for getting his career stats dead on to the yard. Somebody was paying
Yeah.
attention at halftime during the Plaza speech, because they guessed to the yard on his career stats. Unfortunately, the question was the 2010 season stats. I hope one day we see a quarterback throw over 31,000 yards in a season. That would be that'd be a lot of fun to watch. I would enjoy that.
Well, I was going to say, obviously, someone tipped her off on what the question was about, or maybe she was paying attention to those speeches, like you said. But the fact that she got it right on is that she quickly Googled Durant's stats before the question was asked.
Well, and then the second guess was what, 1,000, and then there's 1,500, and then the last guess was $14.99. Got to think that they didn't watch Bob Barker growing up. That's my guess.
Like, was that not a mandatory thing during sick days?
Oh, yeah.
You get up, you sit down on the couch, and you watch Bob Barker and The Price is Right. Like, that was an entire multiple generations of kids that did that, right?
And then you watched Maury to see if they were going to do the paternity test, and you were not the father. And if they weren't doing that, then you had a nap.
Yeah.
But I also remember help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
I like
that is
your
burnt
response.
into my brain.
Your response to my tweet was about the perfect one that could have been made, though, Alex. I won't say it on the air because we have a family-friendly show, but it was a certain quote from Bob Barker from Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Anyway, I got a laugh out of it. So we're there to be entertained, and that entertained us. So
Which has been worse, or which was worse, the $14.99 guess or Mac the Moose from Moosomin, Saskatchewan?
Well, they mentioned God's country, so that one's always going to be better.
I think the $14.99 might take the cake on that one.
I think it might.
It obviously does. I told Mark the one time when I was talking to him, like, everyone now should have Mooseman as an answer, just as a joke.
We've been saying that for a year and a half to him.
Yeah.
How they didn't jump on that immediately. Although I can understand not making fun of a fan, but also when you make that dumb of an answer, own it, live it. Honestly, bring that guy out the next game to ask the question.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Right?
Have like Mooseman Lake, and the right answer. Like make sure he gets it right.
Speaking of Mark, he brought to our attention. We saw it on the Maxtron. I know, Greg, you wouldn't have seen this. He was testing it out for next year, but they put the yard markers, like you see on TV, on the Maxtron. So when you're watching the game up on the screen, if you're in the end zone like we were, you could look up and see the screen. They had the yellow or the line of scrimmage mark and the yard mark. So that was kind of cool that they did that. They also actually put up a little circle with the time clock on it.
Yep.
So
we've been yelling at them to increase their production value for quite some time. That was a perfect change. I loved that. As somebody who has watched for many seasons sitting in the end zone where you have to guess how many yards the guy runs most of the time, it's nice to see that little yellow line that you get so used to on TV. Great job.
So kudos go to the Riders for getting that done. And just to wrap up that game, injuries, none? Question mark? Nothing that
We
they
won't know until next week.
Yeah, nothing at least serious that we can tell. But it was a very, very clean game in that aspect. So talking about the team getting healthy at the end of the year and bodies coming back and nothing going out. So I know Keyshawn Johnson went out there for a little bit, but he came back in. So, but other than that, last week we said that this week we're going to talk about the need of an impact safety. Of course, Nelson Lacombe forces a fumble in this game, has his best game of the season. So debating
So
whether
he got the Piffles bump.
That's right. So same thing with Brett Lothar, right? With his 53-yarder. Just call him out, and then the next week they have a big game, right?
So technically we have the Piffles bump when they're on. So if we criticize them and they do well, is that like a Piffles kick to the butt?
Yeah, probably. We have too much pull on this. I don't like it. Too much of this is our fault. We're going to be a distraction to the team soon. Yeah, it's upside down.
Oh, let's do
The 92 Jays are calling. You got it upside down.
That said, I do still think, and maybe this is more of an off-season topic, because I'm not going to nitpick things on a 39-8 win. The need for an impact safety, but maybe that's an off-season thing. Maybe we would push it back for that. Some roster moves for the Riders as we wrap up the opening kickoff here. They released 6 players from the practice roster: running back Sir Roderick Thompson Jr., quarterback Michael Hires, wide receiver Trey Mosley, linebacker Braxton Hill, defensive back Robert Javier, we hardly knew ye, and defensive lineman Zion Tupula Fatui. So hashtag once a Rider.
Absolute legends. We await their plaza induction down the road.
But with bodies coming back, you got to make room for them somewhere, right? So it's just a numbers game.
And I'm certain we'll see some of those guys in training camp next year.
Oh, probably. This is hey, we'll let you go right now, and if you catch on somewhere, great. But otherwise, we want you back for next year. So, but Greg, you had the sign up once again. We'll talk about it right now. Roland Milligan for MOP, our campaign most outstanding player, the guy who should rightfully win that award this year. Yard signs, as you see, $20 minimum. If you want to send us more than that, please do, because this is going towards CFL Fans Fight Cancer. So we have a whole bunch of these. If you want one, like we said, it's election season here in Saskatchewan. Don't know who to put up on your front lawn? Put up Roland Milligan, because that's something we can all agree on. $20. Send us a message, an email, pifflespodcast@gmail.com. If you want to get yours, more than happy to get these out to you. And again, proceeds go to CFL Fans Fight Cancer. So let's have a little bit of fun, because that's what we're doing. We're having some fun with this little campaign, and obviously trying to fight cancer as well too. So it's win-win everywhere. So if you want to get one of those signs, please let us know. And randomly, a few of them will be signed by Roland Milligan himself. Once he comes back from the bye week, we'll get him to sign a couple of them, and we'll slide a couple out there. So who knows? You might get a signed one for $20. That's a pretty good deal to me. Well, that's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Let's get to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. And I don't want to dwell too much on this, guys. I wrote the article about it. I left it there. I want to kind of leave it there. But still, this game wasn't sold out. There was, 28,000? Just under 29,000, I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, a very solid crowd for a Thanksgiving Saturday at 5 p.m. game. Because a lot of people are going out. Greg, you went out of town, right? A lot of people went out of town, go see family. Out-of-towners, are they going to come in for a Saturday at 5 game on a long weekend on Thanksgiving? Probably not. Kudos to those that do, but if you can't, I mean, that's perfectly fine, right? The article up on RP's website by Scruffy is Rider Pride dead? Oh, it's not dead. It's on life support. Get out of here. Rider Pride is not on life support. I can respect the fact that you believe this game should have been sold out, because in the past, a game like this would have been sold out. A game for a home playoff game at Taylor Field probably would have been sold out. But to me, the main issue that I have with this is someone, Scruffy, who had decades of getting free tickets to sit in the press box. You have no right to call out fans for not spending hundreds of dollars to go to games. I agree with the idea that Rider Pride has changed. I don't think it is what it used to be. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just a different thing. And I think just being a pro sports fan has changed in the last 10 years specifically. And we're seeing that here in Saskatchewan. It's expensive to go to games. And if somebody can't go because it's cheaper to stay at home and have a gathering around, and you're going to, have your beers, have your appies, order some pizza, do whatever you want to do, you're going to save a hell of a lot of money doing that as opposed to going to the game. And then you're home right away. You don't have to worry about traffic or getting out of the stadium and all that kind of stuff. So if that's what you want to do, please do that. But to call out fans and say that Rider Pride's on life support because this game wasn't sold out, to me, that was garbage.
I remember a time when Ryder Pride was on life support. We had telethons.
Telethons.
That was life support. There are 7 other fan bases in the league right now that would kill for 30,000 people or 29,000 people to be a bad crowd. That's what it's come down to now. We're so used to the, that 07 to even 2016, 2017 with the new stadium. Yes, sellouts were a common occurrence. That's what happened. When you're winning, then you have a new stadium, you're going to have that wow factor. But this team has been hot garbage for multiple years. The marketing of this team has been hot garbage for multiple years. You're going to see a downward trend. But you're seeing that flip up again with the work the team is doing this season. You're starting to see them put promotions out there like 2-for-1 tickets. I have no problem with that. If it gets people in the stands, gets them buying merch, gets them buying food, that's the point. Fill the stands. You get your what do you call them, packs, your flex packs, things like that. They're starting to do the work to build it back. But to call 29,000 people on a Thanksgiving Day weekend football game, life support, what do you even say to that?
But people are also misremembering the way it was back then too. Between 2007 and 2010, the maximum capacity at Taylor Field was 28,800.
Yeah.
Then they added a couple temporary seats for a couple of seasons, and then they did the legacy project that did, bring it over 32,000, I think it was. It was 33,300.
33.
It was slightly bigger than what Mosaic Stadium is now. But you had a lot going for you back then. You had the Grey Cup coming. You had a new stadium coming, and people wanted to go to the Old Girl one last time. You had a really good team, minus the season that didn't happen in 2011. But people 20, I would argue your base amount of fans for Ryder is 29,000. That you could probably get to a game every game. Is this stadium, if this was a 29,000 seat stadium, no one would say a damn thing right now. So people need to adjust their expectations to where the market actually is and where it actually was. And everyone wants this romantic time of sellouts and Hobson on the sideline and Grey Cup appearances. And the team was rocking and rolling and making money. And they were up there with Harley Davidson and all these other brands. And they've got work to do to get back to where they are. Is this team dead? No. Was it where it used to be? No. But it's to crap all over the fans because they're not supporting the team is garbage. It's a completely different situation.
Buy your own tickets if you're going to do that. If you're going to crap on people, at least be buying your own tickets. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Ryder nominees are going to be out. Because we record this on Tuesday, my guess is that on Wednesday, all teams will announce their own nominees for Player of the Year awards. So I want to go back to our picks from preseason and see how close, Steve. Yeah, you didn't do good in this. I looked over these earlier. Greg and I
got
did.
one right.
Pick'em record is
I
better.
got at least one, maybe two right.
So who should the Ryder nominees be for Player of the Year? And we'll go in order, and then I'll say who it was, and then maybe you guys want to change maybe we want to change our
Oh yeah,
answers on this.
we'll be amending as we go.
I feel like we're going to be pretty unanimous across the board for most of it.
Probably, yes. Well, we'll start with most outstanding player. I mean, we have a campaign on it. It's pretty obvious who we're all picking here, right? Okay. Going back to the preseason, who do we pick? I had Sean Bain Jr. Greg, you had Trevor Harris. And Steve, you took Kean Schaefer-Baker.
If
Now,
Harris didn't get hurt, this would be a harder conversation.
Yes. But all three of us, not correct on that one. Defensive Player of the Year. Pretty sure we're all in agreement.
We were
Again,
just as
that one's
wrong.
that one is going to be Roland Milligan Jr. as well.
I want to go back to that audio because I'm pretty sure I mentioned Roland, but I went with Jameer.
I'm pretty sure that's how it happened. You did go with Jameer Thurman. Steve, you took Anthony Lanier the second. And I took CJ Rivas. And both those linebackers, Rivas and Thurman, having fantastic seasons.
Yeah.
But, of course, being overshadowed by most outstanding player, Roland Milligan.
Because I'm pretty sure they said they'll never give it to a defensive back.
Offensive lineman of the year. Greg, you can get your little ding for this one. We let you have this one because I think we all knew who it was going to be.
Kind of wins by attrition, too.
Yeah, pretty much. You had Logan Ferlin there, who's been excellent. Anywhere you put him, he's been fantastic. I had Peter Godber, and Steve, you had Jamarcus Hardrick. So, of course, the injuries ruined those chances. Rookie of the year. This is where I'm going to do my own little Barry Horowitz, because it might possibly be this person, although I don't think so. So I picked Keyshawn Johnson. Greg, you had a Joe, and Steve, you took Malik Straker. It could be Keyshawn Johnson, except for I think it's going to go to Trevor Reed. When the list came out last week of who's available, I don't know how it can't be Trevor Reed.
Because the team nominates, yeah, I could see that. I don't think he's going to get any votes. I think if you put Keyshawn Johnson up there, he'll actually get votes.
He might.
I mean, I think we all said a few weeks ago Trevor Reed was the obvious choice. He's been an absolute rocket tackle. That's something we've needed for, 3 seasons now?
Canadian Player of the Year. Steve, you had Kean Schaefer-Baker. Greg, you had Brett Lothar. I had Sam Emelis. I think I'm going to win that one. I think it's going to end up being Sam Emelis. I mean, another 1,000-yard season. It's kind of hard to argue that when you're throwing out nominees, right?
Yeah, I think that one's right.
Yep. I don't think there's a question there.
And then we did Special Teams Player of the Year as well. I took Malik Straker. He got injured, of course. Steve, you went with Mario Alford, who was probably going to have it in the first half of the season. And
Greg,
good.
wasn't for all those
And then he
holding penalties.
Then he started running out of bounds with every return.
Yeah. He has turned it around the last couple weeks. He's had some very solid games the last couple weeks. Greg, I think you're going to nail this one with Brett Lothar.
I think so, but if Milligan runs away with the tackles, what do you do? Like, do you nominate him for all three? Like all three?
I mean, you could. I don't think
Just
they will.
give him offensive lineman of the year too. Most outstanding Canadian. Throw him most outstanding rookie. Just put him on all of them. Make sure that the media that are reporting or doing the voting at the end see his name when they vote MOP.
I like that.
The team to do.
We also did our own Unsung Hero of the Year award.
I was
Steve,
wrong.
Yeah, you were. You had Jaden Dalkey and or Jackson Ford, whoever you thought was going to be the safety. Well, neither of them are the starting safety, so
yep,
you missed that one. Steve, you took Micah Johnson, which, I mean, when he was playing on the offensive line too, you probably would have nailed this one because he's been excellent in the middle of the defense. He's not getting the glory stats, but his impact is absolutely there. I took Trevor Reed. So I think I'm gonna nail that one. I think,
Yeah, I think that's a good pick.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
a great pick.
But like I said, we'll probably know all these nominees here probably tomorrow. But we'll know them from across the league, so we can see. Yeah, so we can see who they're up against. Then maybe
I'm
next
really
week.
curious who Winnipeg puts up on their awards.
Well, Brady's going to be their Canadian and their most outstanding player.
Should
I
be.
got into an argument with somebody, and I should know better than this to argue on Facebook, but somebody was telling me that Tyrell Ford is the most outstanding player in the CFL because he has just as many interceptions as Roland Milligan, not taking into account the rest of the game, which is why Milligan's been getting the love that he has. But oh Lord, it was a painful argument. Don't do that. Don't argue on Facebook.
He'll be their defensive player nominee, and he's had a very solid season. He really has. But Milligan's season has just been better. That's just a fact. Sorry, not sorry. But we'll see where that winds up. And speaking of the Bombers, last week's game against Toronto, first off, it was great when they lost. Let's be real here. That was great. Kept the first place dream for the Riders alive. But this is
how I want to tell you how I found out they lost. I get to Lethbridge.
Check the score.
My dad's a giant Bomber fan. Walk in the door. Well, that sucked. What are you talking about? They lost. No way.
That was probably the best 14-11 game you'd ever watch. Considering that game was like awful, it was fun. It was entertaining. Like that was a solid game, and it came down to the end. But a couple things from that game, and we haven't heard anything about it from media because Wade Miller doesn't want it to be out in the media, and he's probably put the kibosh on it because he kind of runs the CFL. Jake Thomas hitting Chad Kelly when the play was blown dead. Toronto's receiver was 20 yards offside. Whistles were blowing. And yeah, I know the CFL's loudest stadium assisted fans were making some noise. Whistles were blowing very, very rapidly. Jake Thomas goes and hits Chad Kelly, which, hey, I'm all for hitting Chad Kelly right now. Fact is, that's a penalty. And for guys that a fan base that is calling out, well, Riders for being dirty players, that was a very dirty play. But
so
nobody's talking
I want
about
to make sure I got this right. So in Winnipeg, there was a whistle. The defensive lineman blew past the offensive lineman and hit a quarterback, even though there was an audible whistle.
Yeah.
Why does that sound very familiar?
Because it happened 10 years ago.
Never happened.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. Yeah. 2014. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I will say this. I don't like what Thomas did, but I do like who he did it to. So I'm having a hard time, arguing against it. And I have a hard time trying to go to the media to get a fine on this one because frankly, I don't mind when he gets hit. I'm okay with it.
But these guys are the first ones to complain when something goes against them. But yet Cramdy, their linebacker, who's actually had a really solid season, takes out Drew Brown with a vicious headshot early in the season, knocks him out with a concussion. Oh, that's fine. He's just playing the ball. He's playing hard. Well, maybe he should slide fast sooner. Can't have it both ways. So what is it? Okay. Ultimate homerism over there. Just ridiculous.
Well, Wade Miller's the reason why Miles Brown got the dirty moniker, because the one play on Zach Caleros, because technically speaking, Brown didn't get fined for that hit on Drew Brown. There was no penalty on it. So nothing came of it, but because Brown went out, Drew Brown went out, Miller uses as a reason to call him dirty after he grazed Claros's head. Like, yeah, the hypocrisy is very deep in Winnipeg.
But then at the end of this game, when the Bombers don't get their way, when Zach Collaros is short on 3rd and 17, basically to end the game on his run. Now, say what you want about where the ball was placed. It doesn't matter at this point because it's over. It's done with, right? The Bombers get their challenge overturned, or don't get their challenge overturned, which whatever call they would have called on the field was going to stand anyway with the camera angles that they had. So it was short. It was short. That's maybe they were wrong. Who knows? But it was rumored to be Ontario Wilson, but then I read it might have been an undressed player. Sprayed a ref with water after they didn't get their way, after that ball, after the review came back and they said it wasn't going to be overturned. These guys just won 8 straight games. Yeah, I know it's frustrating losing when you only score 11 points, when you only give up 14 points. Yes, frustrating. They are the biggest sore losers I've ever seen in my life. They are being what the New England Patriots were with Tom Brady.
Hey,
Seriously, though, 31 other fan bases in the NFL would agree with me on this. They lose
I
one
agree
game.
with you on this.
They lose one game, and they're just little children. They're infants throwing temper tantrums. And grand scheme of things, yeah, I know spraying somebody with water is nothing. The fact that it's a referee, that changes everything.
That's a
You
suspendable
cannot
offense in my eyes.
do that to a ref.
it is
Period.
a suspendable.
That should be
If you
an
run into a
instant suspension.
referee, if you run into a referee, it's a suspendable offense, or at least finable. Like, if you spray water on a guy, yeah, that is definitely should be.
You'll get a penalty for doing that, but
yeah.
for against a ref,
Yeah.
you should sit for a game.
100%.
I don't care who it
Specifically a
is.
playoff game.
But
Guy can dream.
these guys,
Maybe make it 2 games. Just to set an example.
you know, I actually think it was Brady Oliveira that did that. So maybe just to be safe, suspend him for a game or 2. But just biggest bunch of babies when they don't get their way. Like they are the flagship franchise in the CFL right now. I don't like that, but it's true. And 8 other teams would kill for the success that they've had over the last 4 seasons. They lose one game and things go off the rails. What's going to happen when they lose next week to Montreal? And then the week after in the playoffs to the BC.
Oh, that'd be so good. Don't get me excited. Like, don't get my hopes up.
I'm calling it right now. They lose 3 straight to end their season. We're bringing BC back here for the West Final.
I'm down for a repeat of Winnipeg. Like, I think it's time. They had their run. They seem to be a very streaky football team. Time to flip that streak around right now and go in cold.
But it'll look good on them when they lose. All right. Well, we just still have, I know the Riders are on the bye this week. Next week is the big one with Winnipeg and Montreal first, and then the Riders in Calgary. Obviously, that's going to determine who gets first place in the West. But this week, we have 2 meaningless games and 1 game that actually means a lot in the East. Let's get to our picks here. It's time for Piffles Picks.
Piffles Picks.
Well, folks, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
My job is going to be very easy. There is no lines because no one knows what's happening.
Because two of these games mean nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we're not guessing this week. We'll just do a pick 'em, I guess.
Mhm.
This is probably the fairest way for us to do this.
I guess so.
Sorry, I just want to point out who won last week again.
The guy in last place?
Yeah. The guy that's 7 games back.
Okay.
with 7 games left.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, that guy.
But I want to point out my very few and far between victories. All right.
Well, I will point out that you got the Rider game wrong.
No, I switched to the Riders, didn't I?
No, you took BC.
Oh, I thought I switched to the Riders. Whoops.
No. Good
For
one.
the greater good.
That's right.
Okay. Right. I did do that for the greater good. That's right.
Well, we'll start with Calgary and Hamilton. Wow. I want to tell you I'll watch this game, but I can't promise I'll watch this game. I really don't care about this one. Maybe if PJ Walker starts for Calgary, I'll be intrigued a little bit by that. I don't know. Since we're just doing a pick 'em, I'll take Hamilton because Calgary's just awful.
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
gonna take
I think
Calgary.
Hamilton. I'm going to take Hamilton, and I think Bo Levi Mitchell plays because I think they're going to try to force him into the MOP conversation.
You don't make the playoffs, you can't get MOP. I don't care how good you were.
I agree. I agree with you, but I think they're going to try to force him into it because if Cody Fajardo is your best bet coming out of the East, you might be able to get some votes going. Well, really, is he?
Honestly, if anybody puts in Cody Fajardo over Bo Levi Mitchell, you might as well go with a Tyrese Beverett or
But Beverett,
anybody else.
Beverett.
If Cody's the nominee, it won't be Beverett.
I'd rather they throw in. Cody's had an okay season when he's been in, but he's missed half the season.
Maybe it's Justin Hardy. I don't know. If it's not Beverett in the East, I don't know who it should be because it shouldn't be Bo Levi Mitchell.
They would not go Beverett versus Milligan for most outstanding player. And
No,
most
not
outstanding
a
defensive player.
chance.
No way. There's
No.
not a chance.
That's your defensive player battle. Anyway, the second game of the week is the one that means something, and it's a huge game. It's Ottawa at Toronto. If Toronto wins this, they get second place in the home playoff game. Ottawa would still need a little bit of help, I think, in the final week. If they win this, they will have to beat Hamilton or have Toronto lose to Edmonton to get second place. So,
And Ottawa, if Ottawa wins this, they would hold the tiebreaker too. So I guess could be a thing. I don't know. I was trying to figure it out today. Well, how does that work?
No, whoever wins this game is in the driver's seat because Ottawa's only 1 point back. With both have 2 games left to go. So, winner of this one's in the driver's seat.
yeah, so Ottawa would just have to beat Hamilton next week again to clinch second. So, or have Toronto lose in Edmonton. Okay, who you guys got?
I'm going to go last. I need to make up some ground.
I got Ottawa. Toronto did us a favor by beating a old Winnipeg team, but I like Ottawa's upside better.
I think Ottawa's been just terrible the last month, and Toronto's trending upwards. Give me the Argos.
How am I supposed to catch you guys if you pick different teams? That's not the way this is supposed to go here. But Toronto's the obvious choice. Ottawa looks like hot garbage.
And speaking of hot garbage, the BC Lions are at home to the Montreal Alouettes in a game that means absolutely nothing anymore, with BC locked into third and Montreal locked in at first place. I'm going to go with BC in this one. I don't know why, even though they've been terrible. I think Vernon Adams just gives them that spark at home, and he runs the offense a little bit more smoother. And again, Montreal has nothing to play for. Just don't get hurt. So even if it's Cody Fajardo in this one, it's Fajardo for the first half, and then who knows? So I'll take the Lions.
I think the team's going to respond differently with VA as well. So I'm on the Lions on this one. And that trip out to Montreal from Montreal to BC sucks.
I'm going to go with Montreal because absolutely no good reason whatsoever. I just need to make up ground.
Because you have to.
Because I have to.
All right. Well, there's our picks this week. I forgot to mention this a little bit earlier, just when we were talking about the game, and then obviously we got a couple of minutes here, I think. Maybe we could do it next week. Maybe do it now. Okay. The Plaza of Honor And obviously Roy Shivers and Darian Durant getting into the Plaza of Honor this year. Steve Molnar deferring to next year, his family deferring to next year. They weren't able to make it up. So understandable on that. You want them in attendance. So they'll be there for the 2025 induction of Steve Molnar into the Plaza of Honor. But it was Roy Shivers and Darian Durant. And actually just before this show, I put out an article that said it was the perfect pairing, these two going in together, because without Roy Shivers, there is no Darian Durant in Ryderville. Darian Durant was with the Ottawa Renegades negotiation, or he was on their negotiation list, got picked up by Hamilton, and then in the trade for the number 1 pick in the dispersal draft, when the Renegades folded, Roy Shivers was able to get the number 1 pick, which was for Kerry Joseph, and a neg list quarterback named Darian Durant in exchange for Corey Holmes, Scott Gordon, a first-round draft pick, which was J.P. Bakaziak, and a neg lister, that a quarterback that didn't do anything. So Roy Shivers was responsible for bringing and signing Darian Durant here to Saskatchewan. So who knows how things would have played out. Darian probably would have been somewhere else in the CFL, could have came up here and signed somewhere else, but he likely doesn't come to Ryderville. So without Roy, there is no Darian here in Ryderville, and I truly believe that. So to have them going in together, just full circle, just completes it for me. But with the Plaza of Honor, Steve, I know you absolutely loved Roy's heartfelt speech at the game. So for those that didn't,
it brought a tear to my eye.
Yeah. So for those that didn't make it to the game and didn't get to see it, Steve, do you want to basically just paraphrase what Roy said?
I'm glad to be back. Walked off stage.
And that was it. Hello, I'm glad to be back. And then he left.
I love a fast, get it over with, thank you speech. But Roy Shivers has it down to an art.
But when Roy anytime Roy said something, he meant it. So for him to say he was glad to be back, he really was. And then I went out to the Ryder store signing on Friday night last week when they had Darian and Roy there, and was able to take a minute and talk to both of them. And you could tell Roy he really was glad to be back and to get this, because you could tell that he felt he deserved it. And the way things, obviously, I mean, he said he would never work for Jim Hobson. He would work with him, but never for him. But for him to, kind of push everything aside and both sides to kind of, reconciliate. It was nice and very deserving for both of them. And obviously Darian, with things he's doing with the team now, and obviously on the sports cage every week, he's making Ryderville a home again, even though he doesn't live here anymore. He's making it a home again. So great to see both those guys. And again, like I said, to start off the show, follow us on social media. This is a giveaway. Darian Durant and Roy Shivers signed football. So if you want the class of 2024, there you go. Follow us on social media. Piffles Pod on X, Piffles Podcast on Facebook. Do that now, because we'll be giving that away over the next couple days. But with the Plaza of Honor, and Steve, I said to you at the game, should Brendan Taman be in? What do you guys think? Steve, you said no.
I don't think so. I really don't. I don't see the measure of excellence that I think it should be to get into the Plaza of Honor. Now, that measure of excellence has definitely dropped over the years, but you're talking about a guy who was the GM for a Grey Cup title in 2013 and built a great team through that stretch, 2010 to 2015. So maybe I could be, swayed a little bit, but I said it at the game. He came from Winnipeg, so screw him.
Yeah, but he started with the Riders. This is what I don't
Yeah.
understand.
He was a water boy, I think, equipment assistant for Norm Fong way back in the day.
Like,
Oh, I know. And he's a Saskatchewan born and raised kid.
He
But-
still has a 306 number.
There you go.
I say,
Let him in. Let him in.
I mean, you can kind of say that he's in with the 2013 team being inducted last year, but
That
I don't
doesn't.
know. When you're the GM of that 2013 team and you go all in and win it, I'll give you a little bit more grace for that. So I say put him in.
I think he deserves it. I really do. Like, we have 4 Grey Cups. Like, he put together a team for that moment. Like, that could have blew up on him with what he did. And really, if Darian didn't get hurt in 2014, there was probably back-to-back Grey Cups. So I think I would not be mad if they put him in. I could see if they don't, but I wouldn't be mad if they put him in.
To me, I think the difference between you look at what Roy Shivers did, and he took an absolute dumpster fire of a football team and turned them into a competitive team that a destination, like we heard all from Rob Vanstone. To me, all Brendan Taman did was took a team that was already built and tweaked it a little, which is important, and won us a cup. But it's not the same level to me. I think if Roy Shivers had to wait 20 years, you make him wait 30. Put him in eventually.
But-
I'm good with it, but make him wait.
But here's the thing, though. You need to remember the circumstances that made him general manager. That team could have fell apart. That team could have been easily blown up after with what happened with Tillman on his way out. Like, he managed to get through that and build a winner at the same time.
Okay, well, who should go in next year? And I'm going to omit a couple names here. 2 guys that 100% will be in, but just to their circumstances right now won't get in. Jeremy O'Day and Richie Hall. Obviously, Jeremy O'Day being the GM right now, and then Richie Hall being in Winnipeg. I don't think you're going to want to put in your biggest rivals, one of their staff members. But both, obviously, I think we're all in agreement here. Both will get in and deserve to be there. I'm going to throw out a couple names. Just give me some yes or no's. Should they be in? And this is for maybe next year. I didn't put the name on the list. Guy who should be in, to me, Rob Bagg.
I thought they offered
You
it
just
to
want to
once
see
already.
Rob
And you said
Bagg's
no.
arms again.
He has very nice arms.
I for some reason, I'm sure I heard they offered it to him and he said no. But I wouldn't be shocked if they offered it to him.
That'd be news to me. I didn't hear that. He deserves it, though. Okay, I'm going to throw out some names. Yes or no? Kenton Keith.
Absolutely.
I say yes as well. Tyron Brackenridge.
Oh, hell yes.
Just because I'd be afraid he'd hit me if I said no.
Yes.
And I should say on a football field, not.
His career wasn't long, but man, was he a special player when he played. Jackie
His
Mitchell. Sorry.
One second.
Go ahead.
His timing on that safety blitz,
Fantastic.
unbelievable.
Speaking of timing on a blitz, go with
That
Jackie
hit on
Mitchell. That
Dave
who
Dickinson.
was it? Yeah, no, was it Dave Dickinson?
Yeah. In BC
Yeah.
Place, he smoked him.
Oh, that still might go down between that and the hit on Buck Pierce by
Butler.
Craig
thank you.
Butler.
Craig Butler are 2 of the hardest hits I think I've ever seen in the CFL. So just put Jackie Mitchell in on that hit alone and honestly build a statue of that hit.
I will say no on Jackie Mitchell. I liked him, but I don't think he'll get him. Marcus Adams.
He's probably not.
I don't.
Really?
I would say yes.
I don't think he may. They might, but I don't think he makes the cut.
I think he did enough in the community as well as, I mean, he was tenured here for a long time. won a Grey Cup. Should have won 2. I think he should get in.
Hey guys, we're dumb. Breckenridge is already in the plaza.
Is he actually?
2013.
Well, the 2013
just-
team, right?
Oh,
Breckenridge-
yes. Sorry.
Breckenridge
Sorry,
wasn't
yes.
playing until
Yes.
it
Sorry,
was
sorry.
2012 to 2016. I think.
Sorry, misread.
So
Sorry,
it's just
they
you that
have him listed.
got it.
Yeah, that's me. That's dumb. Yeah, they have him listed as in already. I'm like, what? Oh, okay, well,
Yeah, I mean, that's saying Tino Sinceri's in. Like, come on.
the legend as he is. Yes.
My favorite Tino Sunseri story will always be meeting his ex-girlfriend in Miami and her recognizing the Ryder jersey. Like, my boyfriend's your quarterback. Like, no, he's not. But, keep trying.
And final name I'll throw out here before we wrap up the show. We saw Roy Shivers get in. Danny Barrett.
We do like our 99 seasons.
He was a big part of that team turnaround. It wasn't just Roy, it was Danny as well. And they were obviously a tandem. This one's tougher for me because I would always say that Roy should get in. I wouldn't be upset if Danny got in. I wouldn't advocate for it though. I wouldn't put yard signs up.
You know what? As a UCF Knights fan of the last half decade or so, I have to give my my former interim head coach some love. I could see him getting in. I don't know that, like you, I wouldn't advocate for it, but I wouldn't be shocked to hear his name. I think
He would.
we all grew up in that same era of Roy Shivers and Danny Barrett, and that's what led to that 07 to 2013 era that we love, and it started there.
But I don't know. I think he might make it, but he's not going to be the headliner. Like, you would put him with a big name, so to speak.
Now the trouble with him is trying to get him up here with his, because he's coaching in he's with the Texans.
He's the running back coach for the Houston Texans, offensive assistant or something like that too.
He's done great in his post-Ryder career for sure.
Give the NFL schedule makers a call and say, you got to give the Houston Texans a bye on week 12, whatever, week 6, whatever it ends up being. It would be week 12, somewhere around there. Give them one of the early buys. That's when we'll do Plaza of Honor night.
And they'll laugh at you and say, really? You think
I was going to say, and what they do, they're like,
NFL?
who is this and how'd you get this number?
Somebody signed up for the media directory. Well, there we go. But we'll talk obviously next year, Plaza of Honor, when May is usually when they announce it. So we'll do some more Plaza talk then. But really cool to see Darian and Roy go in. And of course Roy's amazing speech.
Beautiful.
But that'll do it for us this week here on the Piffles podcast. I can't wait for next week when we talk about how Winnipeg's going to lose to Montreal and we're going to win to get first place. So we'll do all of that next week on the Piffles podcast. Reminder, if you want a Roland Milligan for MOP yard sign, please send us a message on any of the social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Email us as well to pifflespodcast@gmail.com. And let's raise some money to fight cancer in the process. But Piffles Podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, go to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support making the show possible. Thanks for watching on YouTube, SaskTel Max TV on demand, or listening wherever you get your podcasts. This is Tyler Gilbert with Ghost Behind Your Mind.
The